Hello, I'm Naomi Jenkin. I'm an animal artist from Cornwall, and today I'm going to introduce you to Pan Pastels, and I'm going to show you a few different ways in which they can be used. Hello, today we're going to take a little look at Pan Pastels. So if you've never heard of Pan Pastels before, this is what they look like. So they're part of the chalk pastel family, and they come in these shallow plastic dishes or pans. The brand is actually Pan Pastel, so that's the name of both the brand and the medium. And you take the lid off and it's basically a load of compacted chalk pastel pigment pressed into these shallow little pans. So they come in a variety of different colours. I can't remember how many shades there are, but there's quite a lot. And there are also different tools available to use with them. So you get sponges that look like this. So the tools are called soft tools with 2 F's. They're made by Pan Pastel. They're specifically designed to work with Pan Pastels. You also get knife tools, and these covers slip off and you can use different shaped covers. So there's pointed ones like this for more detailed work, square ones, and they also have rounded ones too. And then last but not least we have the mini applicators, which are a bit like makeup applicators, and they're great for smaller areas or more detailed areas. So first off I'm going to show you how to apply the Pan Pastel. I'm actually going to start off with the blue colour, I think. And first off I'm going to show you how to apply an area of diffuse colour. So I'm going to take my sponge here. So this is great for getting a lot of colour down very quickly. So let's just get some. This colour is phthalo green extra dark. So if you're doing a background, this is a really great way to get a nice even spread of colour. And you can mix different shades as well by layering and then blending those together. So you can see how smooth that looks. So the surface I'm using is pastel matte, and if you're using chalk pastels I highly recommend using a surface with a bit of texture to it. So pastel matte is a lightly sanded surface. It holds loads of layers of pastel, which is great. If you don't use a sanded surface or a textured surface, you end up with a lot of dust, which isn't great to breathe in, and it's really hard to work with. So something with a bit of tooth, a bit of texture will allow you to build up a few layers, which just makes your life a whole lot easier. So I'm just going to demonstrate drawing some more detailed marks on this. So let's say we're going to create a bit of a kind of grassy, meadowy sort of look. So I'm just using the edge of my mini applicator to get these finer marks. You can just lightly blow off any dust that you do get. So you can see it is possible to get some quite hard edges. I could also do this using one of the sponges, so this is quite a hard edge here with a few corners. So this particular shape of sponge is actually really good for doing grass. You could also use it for fur or putting in branches maybe. So let's put a lighter shade on top of that. So this is Dairy Light Yellow. You can see how quickly this is going down, and just by varying the shape, I'm able to get some quite interesting marks going on. I'm going to go back to my mini applicator to get a few more varied marks in there. And then let's say we wanted some light coloured flowers or something on top. So I'm going to use my pointed knife cover. Put a few details in there. So you can see how I'm able to layer up and how these colours sort of blend and mix together, and you get some nice gradients going on there. So now I'm going to quickly demo how to do a bit of a foliage background. So I'm just going to get a few different shades of green. So this is quite a nice one. This is a bright yellow green shade. Use some of that. So there's also a bright yellow green shade, but it's slightly lighter version. And this one as well, permanent green. And some bright yellow green. So these are some great shades for doing foliage. So I'm going to start off with my blue again, because I quite like a nice dark background to it to give it a bit of depth. So let's get that in there. You can see how quickly that went in. Now I'm going to take one of these shape sponges. I find this is a really good shape for doing these kind of foliage backgrounds. And then it sort of gives a nice triangular shape that's a little bit leaf-like. So if I'm doing one of my wildlife drawings or a pet portrait where I want a leafy background to it, this is generally how I do it. So doing lots of different angles. And then let's go for a brighter colour on top of that. So I always start with the darkest colours first, and then I build up the lighter colours on top, just because the darkest colours are further back. So to achieve that depth, you want them to go on first and then build up the highlights on top of that. So we'll move to a lighter shade again. Because these are all green, I'm just using the same sponge. If I was to go to a completely different colour, I would switch sponges to a clean one, or I would just wipe off the excess on a scrap bit of card like that. and then move to it, because then I wouldn't be transferring that pigment to an area where I didn't want that colour to go. Light shade again. And I'm going to start making smaller marks now by using more of the point. And I'm actually going to switch to my mini applicator because I want to start varying the types of marks so it's looking less uniform, and that way I'll get it a bit more realistic. And you can see how these are sort of blending together a bit as I go on some of the edges. And then let's stick in a lighter colour there to get a few highlights. So some of these are coming out with quite hard edges, which I don't really want. So what I'm going to do, just going to get the excess off from there, and then I can dab over them and blend them out. So it just makes them more out of focus. Let's get some yellow in there. This is a dairy lied yellow. It's quite a nice colour. And again, if I get the excess off, and then I'll just blend out those hard edges slightly. And then I'm actually going to go back in with the dark colour just to get a bit more shadow in there. And again to smooth out some of those harder edges. So there you go, very quickly you can see how with using Pan Pastels we've managed to get something with a little bit of detail going on. If I wanted to, with this grass example here, I could also then go over this with pastel pencils. So that's always an option to layer up these materials. So you could go over like that, get a few sort of more detailed highlights down. And then we got a nice little foliage background going on here, and that only took me a few minutes. So Pan Pastels are a great way to cover large areas very quickly, get some really great results, and yeah, have a play around, see what you can come up with. You could experiment with using paintbrushes with Pan Pastels. I've done that before, it's quite fun. I've also seen some videos before of people using paintbrushes with solvents on and literally painting it on, so that's also an option. So have a play around and see what you can create.